Today on ParaBrazil 16, the women's wheelchair basketball team try to get back in the win column. Liam Stanley secures silver on the track. And we take a special look at wheelchair basketball's Janet McLachlan. Thanks for joining us on ParaBrazil 16's Day 5 coverage of the Rio Games. I'm Mark Sanyush, he's Kyle Cantlin, and though we might have had a day off yesterday, our Canadian athletes certainly did not.
Yeah, Mark, well, we had a little break yesterday. Our athletes were busy taking care of business, and they carried the momentum right into today as our women's wheelchair basketball team, sitting at 2-1, were hoping to rebound from their first loss of the games with a win over home country Brazil. We begin with the women's wheelchair basketball team taking on host nation Brazil. Canada would use a dominant first quarter to open an early 12-point lead. The second frame saw much of the same as Canada would continue to bully the Brazilians on the court. Using their stifling defense and excellent post play, Canada built up a commanding 49-22 lead, putting this game out of reach by halftime. Canada's big three of Janet McLachlan, Cindy Willett, and Erin Young combined for 58 of the team's 82 points, led by Young, who poured in a high of 22. While McLachlan and Willett both recorded double-doubles. Canada advances to the quarterfinals where they will take on the Netherlands tomorrow. And the women's team are now 3-1 and will advance to the quarterfinals. Canada haven't reached the podium since winning the bronze medal in 2004. Erin Young topped the scoring for Canada with 22 points. Between the hometown Brazilian crowd and the Canadian fans, the karaoke arena was rocking. With more on the atmosphere, here is our own Lauren Cascanet.
I'm outside Rio Olympic Arena where Team Canada just took on hometown Brazil in women's wheelchair basketball action. Canada was handed their first loss against Germany last night, and it was their first loss of the preliminary rounds. Canada wasn't sure how the Brazil crowd would react today. So far they've been nothing but welcoming, but playing the hometown they weren't sure. Brazil had a little bit of fun with them, booing them when they would head out to the free throw line for their shots, but all in all they would cheer for them whenever they scored. Canada has moved on and they will play the Netherlands on Tuesday in quarterfinal action. For Centennial TV, I'm Lauren Cascanet.
A lot has happened in the 4 years since the Canadian men's basketball team brought home gold from the 2012 games in London. After a rough start, the reigning champs are clinging to life, having dropped their first 3 games. Needing a win against an 0-3 Japan squad to have any hope of advancing, the largely inexperienced team is still looking to capture some of that 2012 magic. Coach Steve Bialowas giving his team a little pep talk before tip-off. Jump at the second quarter. Japan up early. Bo Hedges with the dish to David Ang with the elbow jumper. A friendly bounce cuts into the Japan lead. Canadian fans are fired up for their flag bearer. Later in the quarter, Ang gets poked in the eye by Daisuke Shihiko, but Ang is money at the line, dropping both free throws to put Canada within single digits. The second half began with some hot shooting from both teams. Japan and Canada traded a barrage of jumpers to start the third. Here's a nifty feed under the bucket to Jonathan Vermette with a soft touch off the glass. But Japan would pull away in the fourth as frustrations began to build. Canada could only get 33% of their shots to drop, while Japan shot a cool 54% from the field. Japan's captain, Ryo Fujimoto, is all smiles as his team finally gets in the win column. Canada falls to Japan 76-45, dropping to 0-4 in group play. Canada, who were the gold medalists in London, are now 0-4 this year and won't be on the podium for the first time since 1996 in Atlanta. Captain David Ang led the Canadian resistance with 18 points. Canada will play their final game of the Paralympics versus Turkey on Monday.
Para-rowing made its Paralympic debut in 2008. Canada sent teams to the 2008 games in Beijing and to 2012 in London, but have yet to stand on the podium. That all changed on day 4 as Canada wins their first ever para-rowing medal. Canada's LTA mixed forward team, comprised of Megan Montgomery, Victoria Nolan, Andrew Todd, and Kristen Kidd, captured bronze on Sunday, giving Canada their first ever medal in para-rowing. It was a tight race with under 2 seconds separating gold, silver, and bronze.
The first 2 boats, GB and America, they got off the line a little bit quicker than we did, and then they strided out a little bit more than we did, but we just held to our race plan and we just did exactly what our coach instructed us to do, and then we literally gave it everything we could at the finish line. But we're really happy. This is Canada's first para-rowing medal ever, so we're pretty stoked on that.
After winning Canada's first gold medal on Friday, Aurélie Rivard was looking to claim her second medal in Rio on Sunday. Competing in the 200-meter individual medley, the defending champion from London 2012, New Zealand's Sophie Pascoe, finds her rhythm early and takes control of the race, setting a new world record. Brevard would not be far behind, she winning silver with a time of 2 minutes and 30 seconds. The 20-year-old will look to reach the podium for a third time on Tuesday in the 100-meter freestyle.
Liam Stanley was a promising runner but an outstanding soccer player, and his goal was to get Canada's para-soccer team to the Rio Paralympics. Track coach Bruce Deacon made him a deal. Focus on soccer, and if the team didn't qualify for Brazil, start training for track. Stanley has twice been named the Canadian Para-Soccer Player of the Year and played on Canada's 7-a-side squad at the Para-Pan Ams last summer. Though admittedly disappointed when the team failed to qualify for Rio, Liam quickly switched his focus to the track, making the adjustment seamlessly while qualifying for the 2016 Paralympics, making it all the way to the T37 1500-meter final. On Sunday, Stanley showed that decision would pay off. The 19-year-old from Victoria made an impressive Paralympic debut, running in front of a packed Olympic stadium. The race was dominated by 3-time Paralympic gold medalist Michael McKillop of Ireland, who set the pace early, and when the Irishman made his move with 800 meters to go, the only man that went with him was Stanley. Coming home down the stretch, the young Canadian would fade a bit, but he had enough left to capture silver and hold off third-place finisher Najib Jemai.
Going to hear the Irish national anthem. It's Michael McKillop heading for the line, and for the third Paralympic Games, it will be gold for McKillop. Brilliant running from McKillop once more. He's the champion on the treble. 4:12.12. Stanley, a brilliant silver for Canada. Third is Jemai for Algeria. Fourth for Morocco will be Iraq.
It was a gutsy international athletics debut for the Canadian.
Janet McLachlan's dream of competing for the national women's rugby team came to an end after a horrific knee injury in 2006, but her competitive drive did not. Having played competitive sports her whole life, a friend suggested that she try wheelchair basketball to stay fit, and she never looked back. And as her resume now shows, the transition has been a smooth one.
Janet McLachlan has always been a talent on the basketball court. She played basketball for the University of Victoria Vikes for 5 seasons, winning 2 national championships in 1998 and 2000. She also represented Canada at the 2001 Beijing Student Games. A versatile athlete, McLachlan also played rugby at an elite level and attended tryouts for the Canadian national team. Her rugby career was cut short after sustaining a knee injury while competing for the British Columbia provincial team, preventing her from making the national squad for the 2006 World Cup. A rugby teammate suggested she try wheelchair sports to stay in shape while recovering from her injury, leading McLachlan to discover wheelchair basketball. McLachlan began competing in wheelchair basketball in 2006 and was thrilled to be able to continue to play the sport she loved in a new and challenging way. She made the national team in 2008 and competed for Team Canada in the Paralympics that very same year. She has since developed into one of the best wheelchair basketball players in the world and is a dominant point producer and rebounder. Shortly after the Beijing Paralympics, Janet moved down to Tuscaloosa to attend the University of Alabama and play for the Crimson Tide wheelchair basketball team. Playing with other Canadian teammates and members of the U.S. national team, Janet and her Crimson Tide won the NWBA National Championship in 2009 and 2010. Janet was selected as the tournament MVP in 2010. After completing her academic career at Alabama, McLachlan joined the Trier Dolphins, a semi-professional wheelchair team in Germany. 2016 in Rio represent Janet's 3rd Paralympic Games. She was in Beijing in 2008 and London in 2012. We had a chance to catch up with Janet earlier this year when we dropped by the Matamé Center in Toronto for the national team's announcement for both the men's and women's teams named to represent Canada at the Rio Paralympics.
3rd Paralympics. I was in Beijing and London, so hoping 3rd time lucky. I think we have the top sort of 5 or 6 teams are very, very strong. The Dutch are playing extremely well right now. The Germans are always a tough team. The Americans are a very good team. The Chinese are a bit of a wild card. We never really know what we're getting. And they're strong as well. British are strong, so we're going to have a lot of competition going forward. Yeah, the Netherlands are an incredibly tough team. They have been for the last about 6 to 8 years. They've been very, very strong. And their program is centralized, very similar to ours. They train together 4 days a week, all year long. So they know each other very well, and they're a very talented team. As far as, I think, on any given day, really, the top teams can beat each other. And we'll be playing each other a fair bit in the time between now and Rio, and hopefully that'll help us prepare for the time when we meet them in the tournament.
One last question for you. Appreciate your time. You ever been to Brazil before? Ever been to Rio?
I haven't, actually. The team was down there in March, but once again I was unable to attend that tournament. But my brother was born in Rio, so I'm the only one in my family that hasn't been, so it's going to be kind of neat for me to go down and see where they lived and where my brother was born.
And here's an updated look at the medal standings. As we can see, not much has changed at the top. China's still dominating with 103. In second, we have Great Britain, and Ukraine is sitting in third.
Canada currently sits in 14th with 12 medals. With just half the games left to go, they're hoping to hit that 30-medal goal.
Well, after a slower than expected start to the 2016 Games, Canada seemingly found its stride and is starting to climb up the medal board. Has anything surprised you so far?
Although the men's basketball results have been a little bit disappointing, I'm really surprised about all these athletes we're hearing about today, Stanley and McLachlan, who've been able to refocus having been forced to change their sports.
That's going to do it for us today. Hope you've all enjoyed the show so far, and we'll be back tomorrow to catch you up on day 6. I'm Kyle, he's Mark, and we're out. Goodbye from all of us on the ParaBrazil 2016 team. See you tomorrow.